So guys, this is Michael Viega. I was looking forward to having him in Brazil, in Latin America. So I'm really glad Mike Key. And for those who don't know Mike was my classmate in the music therapy program, PhD at Temple U. Go Owls! Go Owls!
Go Owls.
Philly. And fortunately, at least for me, Mike became not just a great colleague, but a great friend. Mike has been working as a clinician. He's a professor at Montclair University. He's a GIM fellow, and he's been working as a researcher, and one of his focus is on arts-based, which I consider really modern, really fresh content. And so I'm gonna pass the word for you, and we have until 8,
Okay,
and we are looking
cool.
forward to listening from you, man.
Great,
Thanks
Andre.
for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Andre. And hello, everybody. Thanks, Andre. Hi, everybody. Hello. It's good to be here. And yeah, I have been a music therapist since 2000, primarily working with children and adolescents in a variety of settings where they've, are experiencing recovery from trauma, whether it's medical trauma, working at Shriners Hospital for Children when I was in Philadelphia with kids who had spinal cord injuries, or if it was in community settings with kids in limited resource communities in Philadelphia, working in child welfare, foster care, spending a lot of time, and I've worked with a lot of other people across the lifespan, but working with teenagers and children has been primarily my major clinical focus. And with that, many years of working using various pop music styles, especially within hip hop, electronic dance music. So, roughly at about 2004, 2005, when I got my first Mac computer, and it came with GarageBand, and I got my first little interface, audio interface, I knew that my practice was going to change, meaning that I didn't have to have my guitar, my drums, my keyboard, my percussions, my xylophone, carry everything on my back, walk into a hospital room, be very careful I don't drop everything. With the advent of portable recording technology, I was able to walk into spaces, private spaces, in hospital rooms, and in classroom settings, in community spaces, and begin to create music, create beats. And in the studio, the music continued, and the studio was our primary instrument. We worked with the music studio as our primary instrument. So it was around the time I was doing my dissertation when I had collected, hundreds of songs that had been written by people and youth, teenagers, in a variety of settings. And these songs were not just therapeutic artifacts to me. They weren't just clinical notes. The songs that we created in therapy were, for me, living documents of people's experience. And these songs were as beautiful to me as any other music that I had come across in my life. And so I wanted to study these songs. This has been my primary form of interest, was analyzing and really getting into songs created so that we can understand better, what is the role of songs created in therapy? How are they unique? What are they telling us? How can we listen to songs created in therapy and learn from them? Learn from them. How can the people that we work with continue to be our teachers, continue to be artists who share their music, and so that we can learn from their experiences and we can really honor their creativity. And so I knew I did not want to analyze them. I didn't want to just analyze lyrics. I didn't just want to do music scores. I wanted to analyze and get to know them in a new way, in a different way. And so that led me down the road to arts-based research, where I wanted to analyze these songs using songwriting, using composition, using art as the form of knowing, as the form of understanding. For me, art and music inspires more creation. And that in of itself is evidence that the artwork and music is, has meaning, has importance, has beauty and knowledge that's being shared. And then I have the urge to create and share what I got from it with the world as well. And hopefully it shares, it inspires others as well.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
excuse me, this is your
No.
feeling. This is your feeling.
Yeah.
But I'm going to provoke you from time to time. We know that the scientific world is very rigid.
Yeah.
How come? How come? Even though for you is like really robust and really clear that the therapeutic production itself, the creativity, is there, and is saying something with lots of meaning. But how can we prove, for example, for people that they are not from the area?
Well, so arts-based research is a really fascinating area of research in which it's not just limited to statistical quantitative research or qualitative research where we create themes and construct meaning from experience.
Right.
Art and aesthetics and beauty, it lives in both worlds. If we think about the scientific method, right, and we look at the chart graphs, right, the pie charts and the tables and the regression lines and all these areas of statistical graphs, the aesthetics of those are very 1950. A lot of times it's like, it feels, when you see like a research chart, there's still an aesthetic to that kind of style. And it might not be as beautiful or engaging as a work of art, but it does have design to it: tables, pie charts, graphs. There are researchers in the quantitative scientific world that have artistic mindsets and says, how can we convey data in ways that is beautiful, so that when we share data, it is engaging. We know it through the beauty of the chart, of the information. With the digital world now, we can design data, especially large data sets. We can design the data in such a way that it's interactive, engaging, beautiful, aesthetic, so that those numbers begin to make more sense and actually tell a story as well. We also have what's called data sonification, in which people are starting to, researchers at MIT, because the protein of coronavirus is so small that we cannot see it, but we can graph it through sonics, through sound. And so researchers are actually taking very complex data and mapping it out through sound and creating sonic structures of very complex data sets. And because hearing can actually figure out patterns quicker sometimes than our eyesight. And so it's interesting that art and beauty and thinking in terms of creativity is alive in the scientific world within our, within quantitative research. So I love arts-based research because it's the worldview you're bringing to research is one of creativity. That's the primary kind of worldview. We think about in research, we talk about objectionist worldviews and constructionist worldviews and transformative worldviews. Well, for me, my worldview is creativity, right? Creative. What I have a research question, and what is the impetus, the spark, the creative spark that leads me to investigating this question? I can do it through, statistical methods. I could do it through qualitative methods, but I do want to engage in it in a way with a mindset of an artist.
Historically, arts-based was linked with qualitative, right?
Yeah.
So how do you put today? I mean, in the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, certainly, it has its history in the social sciences within the 1980s, being a nice extension to qualitative research, where people, I'm interviewing other folks, I'm coding all this interview data, and I get stuck as the researcher. And so I want to create something, poetry, music, to help me better understand and organize this data. And so the arts kind of formed out of that qualitative research. But people were still really considering it as that extension of qualitative research. It's really been within the past 10 years. And, let me just see if I can pull this up. If you go to this website, informationisbeautiful.net, you can see a really great example of how arts-based research is used within the quantitative world. So here we see, large data sets, public data sets. One of my favorites is snake oil supplements. So right here, this is all research, right? Randomized control trials about supplements and what supplements, work, and which ones are just false, And as you could tell, as I go through this, it has design. It's, I could click on each one. It will link me to the research. If I'm interested in, the health benefits of, whatever, of caffeine or whatever, it will link me to it. So, it has been within the past 10 years or so that quantitative researchers have been thinking in terms of design and sharing information so that it can reach a larger audience, right? And so that audiences can really, involve in this, or be involved in this information in ways that, that can inform folks instead of those pie charts, graphs, etc. So I see it now within the past 10 years or so, really having evolved into, a worldview, its own kind of research identity where a creative mindset, where creatives, artists are part of the research team. Design, and that artists have a unique way. When you think about research design, and people and scientists have, the creativity that goes into that, into building research designs, both qualitative and quantitative. The line between art and science, the divide between the two, that hasn't always existed. The art and sciences are really together,
So it's beautiful that the way you are putting it, Mike, you are not like just trying to establish like a unique identity for arts based, but you are getting qualitative models closer
Yeah.
to arts
Yes.
and quantitative closer to art as well. I
Yeah,
think it's
like
very
I want access to like large data sets, statistical data sets, and as a and learn and be able to work with a team to say, how can we organize this data in a way that's beautiful and engaging, right? And as we begin to organize this data, maybe little like themes, motives come out. And then we put together these themes and motives so that we create this beautiful song that goes with and helps tell the story of those numbers. Because those numbers can be really scary. Or the themes in the qualitative world. The themes, they get to be kind of heady and in the head at a certain point. Like I developed all these themes, and here are the themes within this qualitative research. So let's hear the music. Let's hear the story. Let's hear the poetry. Let's engage. Let's enhance that. Yeah.
as if the relationship between the themes themselves become like some like the codes of the qualitative codes, right?
Right.
So we could start translating, giving meaning to the research based on themes, based on
Yeah.
aesthetics, right?
Well, and also especially within this new world, within digital being able to utilize digital technology, different online platforms, whether it's like Soundtrap or I mean SoundCloud or whatever social media and YouTube, etc. There's so there research doesn't necessarily always have to be behind a paywall. That's only open to academic university people. That only if you have enough money can you get the research. Arts-based research allows us to create new platforms to disseminate and share ideas and new theory and new ideas, and then we can get into conversation about it. So when I created my dissertation, right, and for those of you who might not know, my dissertation was analyzing songs that had been created in music therapy, and I remixed them utilizing digital music technology. I remixed those songs to create a narrative, a storyline about the development as I experienced of through trauma and trauma recovery.
Let them know about the population you research.
Yeah, it was teenagers who were in child welfare, foster care, and those are the songs that I analyzed. Yeah, and that dissertation, which was published, online through text, and there were links in there to the compositions. I cared more about the compositions. I cared
Nice.
more about the song.
Sure.
But here's this like 300 page. No one's going to read that thing except for like a small amount of people. Let alone no one's going to be able to hear the music. And those links that I put into the document are now they don't even work anymore because just the links die out, over time. You can't even really go into my dissertation and hear those anymore. So I wanted people to actually listen to my remixes. And so I was able to perform live my remixes and do performances. And I think I performed that album, my final results of that study. I performed it probably, in different variations, 6 to 9 times. And, I probably, out of those 9 performances, probably 250, 300 people saw it. I got to talk with them about the research. I got to talk with them about childhood trauma, adversity, hip hop, digital technology, songwriting. We got to discuss the topics of the research one-on-one together, in a live performance. Whereas someone reads my dissertation, there's no interaction, there's no conversation. So we can utilize different platforms to actually engage people and get excited about research, get excited about sharing new information. And so, that I think for arts-based research is something that can really be unique, that we can create new platforms and break that kind of barrier between like research is only for people up in their ivory towers. Research is only for that. And as a music therapy clinician, it's like art for me. I started to hear, the I'm a clinician, I'm a songwriter, I'm a music producer, I'm a fan of music. It's in my life all the time. Arts-based research brought all these worlds together. I didn't have to be a researcher over here. Like arts-based research allowed me to be who I am. And I was just going to let people know, Andre, when we first met, when Andre came to work to do his PhD at Temple, and he heard you're coming on the subway, and you heard the tritone of the or is like a major.
It was a
maybe?
descending perfect fifth.
That's right. Open doors. Was that yeah? And
doors open.
Doors open. Yeah. And for you, that interval sparked a song and was a way for you to understand and connect to the anchors, to like what is grounding. I'm a new person in a new country. I don't know anything. I don't know where I am. I don't know. And this interval grounds me and helps me to move on to and get through that door.
Yes.
So for me, when you told that story and you played that song, I said, this is arts-based research. He's exploring himself. It's a heuristic research where he's exploring who he is. And that song is the evidence of your experience.
Perfect.
And that evidence is as true as any other evidence in whatever research world. And so I think that way of knowing is not only valid, it is essential to us as music therapists. This is how we keep in touch with what we do.
This is exciting and really, for me, really, really fresh, modern, beautiful. But people may be asking, Mike, we have speech therapists here, we have occupational therapists, we have music therapists. And if people are here listening to us, that's because they believe that, their clients, for example, they sing in the office. I'm looking to a speech therapist right in front of me here. She uses a lot of, creativity, music. She believes in music. Okay. But I'd like you to tell us a little bit like a step by step. So if the speech therapist, the music therapist have like a question, how powerful is this? How can I use this production to defend a project, to ask for a project in a hospital, to prove to the family that this is the result itself of development, of research, whatever.
Yeah.
Step by step a bit.
Sure. And it really is, for me, that it's like, when you go into, I have a research question or I have a topic in mind. For me, there were only at the time, and this wasn't that long ago. This was 2012. At the time, there seemed to have been only a quantitative path, a statistical path, a qualitative path, or a mixed methods research. We'll bring it. And for me, as an artist, I wanted to draw my own path, So I mean, maybe a little rebellious, I like to, honor that part of myself. I work with teenagers, rebellion is important to me.
You are rock and roll. You are rock
exactly
and roll,
right. It's like I don't want any of those roads. I want my own path.
I like it. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I don't honor those roads.
Sure.
I love those paths. And I will meet people on those paths, I will meet people along the way and say, come, hey, can we join as a community? So it values all of us together. I have a unique worldview that is based in creativity that can help you, and you can help me make this design, and we can bring these worlds together and really, really bring data to people in a way that is engaging and sparks interest. So it starts with a topic and a research question, and really a desire to invent a new way of, exploring it, using your unique way of seeing the world. What I love about arts-based research is that you have an infinite amount of methods at your disposal. Meaning, let's say in like quantitative research, I can do a survey. I can do, if I have a lot of money and stuff, I can do a randomized control trial. If not, I could do a pilot study. I could do a meta-analysis, a systematic review. Yeah, a cohort. There's a handful of methods. Most of them are all statistical. If I'm qualitative researcher, I can interview people. I can observe. In arts-based research, I do remixing. Remixing is one of my methods of organizing data. And for me, and the data for me is art and stories and music. And I can utilize remix as a way to help learn new information. I know cartoonists that use cartoon and graphic novels as a way of exploring research, really complex social research. I know artists that use oil pastel as their primary focus or found art. I know, dramateurs who, create massive plays. NYU has an amazing, drama therapy program, and they do these very large plays exploring complex social issues. And so whatever your creative whatever your creativity is can be a form of research, with that question still being central, right? Like, it doesn't say there's no question. Like, there's still a research question. Cool. There's still a design. There's still, you're still considering the design, right? Just like any other research method.
But you explore your own creativity to design the path.
Yes, to design.
Okay, let's look for the results. Go.
Yeah. I mean, so like, for instance, if you all could, if you go to michaelviega.com, I do have 2 research studies up there. The first one, Rising from the Ashes, is my dissertation. And so Rising from the Ashes is a cycle of 12 songs that explores this experience of trauma recovery. And I use the structure of, I'm a big fan, of course. Again, I'm from the pop music. I love popular music. And so, as a teenager, I learned a lot from Pink Floyd's The Wall. The Wall was a narration about post-World War II England. Like, it was very context specific too. Like, it was about England post-World War II and the struggle of the post-World War II generation. And here I am in the 90s, in the 80s and the 90s, learning about the post-World War generation and the struggles of substance abuse, of fame, of rock and roll, of all this stuff through this narration of Pink Floyd's The Wall. That for me, that is, my favorite albums have taught me as much about the world as anything else has taught me about the world. So for me, providing that narration of an album, that I can structure the album in a way, and so Rising from the Ashes starts off by just gathering up our resources, by, protecting vulnerability. These are songs that teenagers wrote that didn't go into the abandonment, that were just kind of building our resources before we go into the cave, before we go into the labyrinth, before we go down into the abandonment, the abuse, the trauma. There were songs like that. And then there were songs about faith and love. And so the album, Rising from the Ashes, is meant to take you on this journey from protecting vulnerability, moving into the abandonment, and coming out of it. Not all of us make it out of it, right? So like as a listener, you go on this musical journey with me and the songwriters to kind of explore this process. After that experience, I was the therapist in that. Like I actually, was the therapist. I was studying songs that I had helped with in therapy. I had contacted Felicity Baker out in the University of Melbourne, and she actually gave me access to a large research project that was happening in Australia, where adults who had experienced spinal cord injuries and acquired brain injuries, adults had written songs, one song about their past self, one song about their present self, and one song about their future self. And Felicity gave me access to all these songs, that's exactly what I was like, what would it be like if I could have access to songs that I wasn't the therapist in? I'm just a listener, and I'll explore it and I'll remix it, and here's what I learned about those experiences. I want to honor people's songs. And that really is the heart of it, man. I love songs. I love music, and I love the songs that people are creating in therapy, and really want to honor them as an important piece of musical history. And so, my remixing is a way of getting into the DNA of the song, of really exploring the song. And I love that when I first heard those songs from Australia, she as a qualitative researcher, they had coded all these codes for the lyrics. So they were analyzing the lyrics, and there were all these codes. And so they were taking the lyrics and they were putting them into these codes, and as the qualitative researchers do. And there was one song and a lyric in that song, and one of the lyrics was written about this, a person who had acquired a traumatic brain injury, and they were talking about their past self. And they were saying, you know what? Before my accident, my life was oblivion, meaning that, my past, there was no meaning. My accident gave me meaning in life. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So you have this traumatic accident, and the accident, you're telling me that your accident was responsible for bringing your true self forward, and that your accident, your trauma was your gift. Like, this is a gift. And that was hard for me. I was like, it was dissonant in my mind, meaning like, wow, how could something so traumatic actually be the thing that brings your true self forward? And so I thought that was really beautiful. It was complex, that people can experience that level of transfiguration, that their true self emerges after experiencing this traumatic accident. Now, it doesn't happen that way with many people. Some people get lost in their traumatic accident and never come out. Some people struggle and struggle and struggle. Some people slowly start to recover. It's different for everybody. Some people over here experience this, well, this is who I am, and they have this power to go teach other people and help other people, and that their accident brought meaning, a meaning to their life. So their coding, the researchers at the University of Melbourne, their coding didn't pick up on that. But as an artist, I picked up on that. The complexity of that one line in that song blew my artist mind away. And I said, I want to explore that. Right? Yeah.
Can I disagree? Because I think you are talking here also that you don't agree with the coding that was made. Because if it was you listening to the songs, you would code in a different way.
Well, I think I actually liked their coding. Their coding was very important. That's that part where what they were doing was absolutely important and was true in that one frame. I brought another frame that their coding, and then if like we could also do statistical testing and do like a before and after of how songwriting helped before and after.
Excuse me. I think the translator is not on anymore. 1 second. Do you have Liz on?
Check 1, check 2.
Liz.
Check 1.
Let me send a message.
I think she said all good.
All good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just saw in the chat. Thank
Sorry,
you, Elizabeth.
Mike. So again, the coding, and you agreed with the code, but once
I get way too excited. By the way, so
okay.
I'll just start talking. Mm-hmm. See, you gotta stop me from talking.
When you listen to the music, it made more sense for you than when you were understanding the coding, right? Is that true?
Yeah, it was. I understood the coding, and like I said, I thought the coding was important. It was just when I went into it with a different mindset, because they didn't go into it listening to the songs in this way. That Oblivion line was like it's just we don't know what to do with that. That has nothing to do with how we're coding self here. We can't put that in there. So I think it's just one way of understanding whether qualitative research or quantitative research. Something's always being left out. Sure. And then kind of pushed to the side as just like a statistical byproduct, or something that we can't code over here. So I think that I brought something new forward as an artistic mind that's there, that can help create more holistic experience of what's happening. It adds to the knowledge.
Thing is, when we listen to the songs that you consider as the result of the research of Rising of the Ashes, my question to you, do I need Mike Viega's explanations to defend the work, or the work itself, the artistic work itself, convince me that the research was made and what I'm listening is a result of this research process? I can see, I know my colleagues here, I think the majority of people here are loving it. But people here struggles, Mike, to deal with this. Should I be quantitative? Should I be qualitative? Should I be mixed methods? No, I don't feel this way. Perfect. But how can I defend a CD?
So again, I think creative people, by the way, creatives sometimes do have to care about the statistics. Like for instance, when you put out an album, people do rate albums 4 out of 5 stars. People give these quantitative judgments to art, whether right or wrong. People do that. People also listen to art and create these meanings of what, all the versions of Pink Floyd and what that means. Sure. And, whatever it is, people engage in art. So as a creative, as an artist, I understand that I could do some quantitative data stuff over here if that's what my creative mindset needs to go into. When you listen to the music, you're going to listen to it through your own funnel. And it puts the responsibility on you, the listener. You can dismiss it, and that dismissing of it tells a story about the phenomenon. Or you could say, that inspired me, and now I want to create my own artwork. Or that gets me thinking about this, or I have a new theory, or I have a new idea. Oops, sorry. We're feedbacking.
People have to shut down the mic.
So I think that kind of that kind of response from the listener, it's not an either or, it's a yes and. People can, and so when I loved performing Rising from the Ashes, and I would get surveys back because I would survey audiences, and I would get these surveys back, and it was and I got a lot of like, this is great, and wow, you took me on this hero's journey, and those were really nice to read, and they were powerful to read. I loved the ones who said, I have no idea what I was watching. You were just making noise. What are you doing with all this technology? It sounded like noise to me. I had a visceral reaction and I wanted to leave. I love that because as an artist, I want people to feel unsettled.
Cool.
Right? Like, I think that's what art is going to do. And it's through that unsettling.
I agree.
That people learn something new.
Unfortunately, when you defended your dissertation, I was in Brazil. I couldn't be there. But when you defended it, did the professors consider, okay, Mike, we need more info about these results. We need great to listen to the entire album. We have different feelings about it, but we need the explanation about the entire project, to consider it science, to consider it result, to consider it the result of a research. I don't know. What did you listen?
Yeah, I mean, that's where. So this was 2012, now 2013, and so the album. And I kind of wrote about the album and took the reader through like what I had envisioned the narrative to be. That was only one chapter of the dissertation. So I did do lyric analysis. I did do music and score analysis. I put those together. So the arts-based aspect led me to other. So in some ways, I had to do a lot in that dissertation to kind of defend it, And so I had a lot. If it was just me, though, right? Like I, as someone who has helped kind of sit on committee chairs for people's arts-based research, and I'm somebody who reviews journal articles and reviews arts-based research. I am interested in what someone's.
Excuse me. Someone have like an open mic. Okay.
All right, cool. So for me, like, I'm interested in definitely, what the art. I would love to see someone's PhD dissertation defense be a musical, be a gallery, a gallery showing, where little bits of data come together and create an experience for us to engage in that stuff in. It doesn't mean they could also do quantitative, qualitative. They could also do other things. But I am interested in, as I get an arts-based research article for a journal, let's say, what does that art what new idea does it generate? What new theory does this art generate? Is the and sometimes I listen to music and I go, well, I don't know what I'm listening to. I have a hard time grounding myself here. I don't know who the artist is or the researcher, right? In arts-based research, we say artist as
I
researcher
love it. I would
because
bring it.
because for
I
us,
would bring it. Yes,
you
artist
know,
as researcher.
artist as researcher. Yeah, because you're braining that mindset within there. And I can
Love it.
sometimes be more researcher or more artist. So, I need the artist context. I need a lot of this stuff to engage in. If you just say to me, well, I just felt like I needed to draw a mandala or draw, and I go, okay, nice mandala. You know, like I'm actually interested in your process. I'm interested in how you created this. I'm interested in what I'm looking at,
Hmm.
and who you are,
Hmm.
and what you were studying, so that that art can really come out. So that's just me, and I also just want to say too, arts-based research is a huge umbrella, and
Hmm.
people call arts-based research, it's known by many names. It's actually many names for it. And it covers people who are just using art to help guide qualitative research, all the way to like people like myself who see it as creativity is the worldview.
Hmm.
Just like the objectionist person, that's their worldview. The constructionist, that's their worldview. My worldview is the creative research worldview. And that's how I envision it. But there's no one definition. That it is a beautiful large umbrella, for people to, yeah, for people
I
to
think
use.
it's fascinating because I mean, this world is really new. You were talking here about 10 years, right? So that
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
we,
really, yeah, I mean, and in music therapy, I mean, it's really, you know, in other fields, arts-based research is second nature. People just know in other fields what art and can do to be evidence and to generate new knowledge.
and
But music
I just
therapy,
want to
music
point
therapy, it's been harder.
I just want to point out again, we don't have only music therapists listening to us.
Right, right, right.
So I mean, it really matches, everybody who works with creativity, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah. I
love
mean,
it. Not necessarily qualitative, not necessarily quantitative, not necessarily mixed methods, but creative world with a broad, very broad possibilities for us to design,
it
for us.
feels it feels specifically, it feels specifically important. I think in our current age as well, where artists, I mean, we're getting information on the news, fake news, right? Like what's real, what's not real, what's truth, what's not truth. It's the artists that cut through that bullshit, right? They cut through that to show us the truth of that. And so I think arts based researchers have an important role in our time period right now
Nice.
to help, brain these worlds together in a way that can help, tell us a truth about humanity and what our experiences are right now, in this really complex time period.
Yes.
That arts-based research is really an important avenue, that can be a very powerful way of disseminating knowledge.
Very well put, Mike. Very well put. Okay, I think we can. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. Rich content. Very complex in a way, simple in another way, right? Because it's about creating, about like giving vias, path
Yep,
for our creativity. I think we can
absolutely.
open for questions, right?
I'm going to put some links in the
Ah,
Zoom, by
okay,
the way,
okay, okay.
if people want them.
So Elizabeth, Mike is adding here some links for people. Let me know when you are done for people to start asking you questions. You are mute. I think you are mute.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Start asking away. Yeah.
Okay, Elizabeth, can you please translate to Mike the questions? Okay. We have until 8:20, right?
No sé.
So, anyone, people, questions to Mike? Marta.
Can I, please? Vou fazer em português, tá bom, Lizzie?
All right. So the first question here is, when you join art therapy and music therapy, how does this work really in the US? Because I know that there's some drawings and a lot of different visual elements. So how can we imagine this?
Yeah. Thank you for your question. So in arts-based research, in art therapy and art education, arts-based research is, very well known and very and really a lot of the important arts-based researchers come from that art pedagogy world, art therapy world. And there is something unique about drama therapy, art therapy, and when the story is told in a narration or scene, right? So like an art therapist I know, Lisa Kay, she was working with teenagers, and she would go every time she'd work with a teenager. Before she would go into the room, she would find a little piece, an object, like a broken piece of glass or something that felt important to her. And she would put it on a note card, make a little note on the note card, and file these little pieces, these little fragments. And she took all this little pieces of data that she had collected over several years of working with young people, and she created this beautiful mural from all the little fragments of this teenager that was beautiful, but yeah, fragmented and just so moving. And it just really brought to me that aspect of arts-based research that where these little pieces of data come together to create this one whole, and that whole, that's the knowledge. And there's something about artwork and I think also drama where there's a lot to anchor on. Like I could see something that's in space, spatial, or I can hear the story and the start to the finish. Music is a little harder, I think. Music. There's a lot of subjectivity to it, right? Like we listen, we all hear different things every time we listen. We have our own cultural connections, and so I think music does play an important role, to help bring a new narrative to the artwork or to the drama too, of course, right? I've done co-therapy groups, and I know Andre does this all the time too, with drama therapists. So as the story's being improvised, the musician is bringing that, and sometimes the story is telling one thing, but the musician comes and tells the opposite story, or tells a contradictory story, or does a parody. Like it could be complex on how the music supports the art, or how the music supports and tells a new story in there. So I think music and the music and the other creative arts are so intricately linked. They're so importantly linked that, if we're doing research together, or if we're doing research, working with other groups of people, to brain, that we could create, artwork, and we could create stories, and we could create music together and put these productions on, with the people we work with. I think arts-based research could be particularly powerful in participatory action research designs, where you're working with people, and what are the research questions that are important for you, and creating knowledge with the participants, and putting together plays, or putting together operas, or putting together whatever it is about the experience of being a cancer survivor, about the experience of losing a loved one, from a crisis, right? Let's do groups together, and let's answer some hard questions together, and let's perform it. Let's bring it out to other people. Let's get feedback from audiences. So art, music, drama, poetry, theory, all these different creative arts modalities, we really need each other, I mean, like in Greece, right? The word for music in Greek was not just the sound, it was all, music was all of the creative arts together. We are tied to one another. And so we need each other, and we could really be powerful as researchers with these creative mindsets. Thanks for your question. I hope that answered. Yeah.
Thank you.
Who else?
Bem, boa tarde.
Well, good
Obrigada.
afternoon, and thank you. I loved your presentation. And well, you did show us at the beginning how the graphs and statistics were transformed into things that really generate engagement
Yeah.
to help the people see this. So, did you do this also in your dissertation? Do you have some work on your webpage that talk about this or that point out to this? Because I think this is something super creative where you can also have like a artistic approach or treatment for this data that you've
Yeah.
collected. I thought this was very interesting.
Right.
Did you do this also in your dissertation, or was it just the album? I don't know. How did it happen? Could you give us some specifications?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, the music tells the story. So for me, I did only use music, and I actually purposely did not want to use pictures or images, or and I also didn't necessarily want to write a narration, like to write like a story behind it, because for me as a musician, I love that music can create really complex worlds where we have to sit within each other, and we don't maybe, I guess, like if I have an album, there's art and stuff, there's some things that help ground me or give me some kind of inspiration for an image or something like that. But I've purposely wanted to see what just music alone can do. So that's an actual interest of mine as an arts-based researcher, because most arts-based research does use art or drama stories. They use other things to help, because I think people like that, because they're like, it feels safe. Like I have this story and I can follow it. But if I just play you music, you go like, you're not sure where you are at first. You have to like, and I think that might be the little bit of rebel in me. Like I want to upset you a little bit, because I feel like upsetting you a little bit helps kind of, it jolts you out of your experience. And I think that comes from my experience as like in popular music, right? Like my favorite artists would change and upset people, and all of a sudden new growth and new worlds emerged from upsetting So I like the idea of upsetting, and I think upsetting is kind of part of what I what I like about arts-based research. So I only have music in mind because I'm particularly interested in what that experience is like for people. But I want to and have plans to work with a creative team to where the music can be taken and brought to visuals, right? Like that's the next step would be like take it to someone who could create music videos from it or create something new. So, and because that does help people, you know, people like to see a video, people like to read the story. So I think that that could be particularly powerful. If you go to my michaelviega.com, the Rising from the Ashes, there is a link to the dissertation, but there is a link. There should be a link to the video. Oh yeah, you should click right here. Hello, and the video is my first performance of Rising from the Ashes, so you can actually see me perform it if you want. It's about 37 minutes, and it's one of my performances from. Walk into my party, getting on the ground. So anyway, if you'd like to go visit that, you can. And also, this one, My Curse is My Gift. This is the one I did with the University of Melbourne. And it turned out to be like kind of a 4-song album. And you can listen to the album in SoundCloud. And it has links to the articles as well, if you would like. So, you know, you could, of course, you could listen to this in SoundCloud. And if you wanted, you could comment. You could comment in YouTube. And I think what's important about that stuff is that you could actually talk directly to me, right? Like it's not like you're reading a research paper in a library and then you'll email maybe the researcher and maybe you'll get a response or maybe not. But here you could actually comment on YouTube. Someone else could comment. You could, you know, you could keep doing stuff with it. It like keeps living on if it has that life.
The art
and that's
keeps
why
going.
The art keeps going. And that's what knowledge should do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what knowledge should do. I think one of the major
Você
problems.
propõe.
No, keep going. Sorry. Go for it, Martha.
Não, que você propõe, basicamente, quer
So
dizer,
basically what you're proposing here, Mike, is that this engagement is very interesting regardless of the language you use, right? So in your case, for example, it's music. Obviously, that's your main form. But now that you've shown a bit of your research and your graphs and you have some data as well and statistics, and I thought it was really interesting how they worked on that link you first shared in the beginning, right? Where you, I think the information is beautiful page, right? I thought that was quite interesting how they got these graphs and transformed them into more of an artistic approach.
Yeah, artistic and also, you know, engaging. You know, I think it's using digital media so that we can access the actual research articles and see it in new ways. Information is beautiful, is particularly a great source for, especially if you're a statistical researcher. I mean, you know, even now, our research charts and graphs are so boring, and we could do so much more to tell the story of the data, because those numbers are a story. Those numbers are proof and alive of something, you know, like they're just as kind of malleable, or they're just as kind of they're just as subjective in some ways, because I got to choose a test in which to put these numbers into, and my choice of the test tells one story. But if I do another test, that tells a different story of the numbers. So the numbers tell a story. So we could give it creativity to tell the story of those numbers. So this is where artists should absolutely be at the front line of research. We're able to tell those stories in a way that's engaging and think of new ways, creative ways to actually engage people in research. So, really, I think artists, are really important in the 21st century, more so than ever. Thanks, Martha.
May I do a question?
Please.
So, hi, Mike. I'll try to ask in English, but maybe in Portuguese.
That's okay. Go for it.
So, we as music therapists, we can get things during sessions, and that inspire us to music, to art. So I was wondering if we get this theme and start working in art with it, with our clients. Which are the boundaries between music therapy practice and music therapy research in art-based research?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, arts-based research, like all research, would be have to go through an institute in the United States through an institutional review board. So but it is challenging because the kind of ways of engaging in art, a lot of researchers don't really know what to do with it yet, and so those boundaries are really important to consider because, when we put something within a creativity and art and performance, the possibility of misusing the voice of the people we're working with, or telling a story that may not be their experience, or exaggerating the story because you want to get an artistic point across, but it actually is not, those boundaries are really important. So being careful not to exploit the people we work with, right? Also, arts-based research performance is not like regular performance because, we're telling stories of people's lives in health situations, and those stories can be very hard to hear for the audiences as well. It's not they're not they're not stories and artwork that necessarily is for popular consumption because it's still research, and that context is important as well. So all these areas do need to be considered when thinking about the ethics of your design. And research design has beauty to it as well. And ethics is beautiful as well. So, artists are, to think about these kind of positions of power between the people we work with us as artists, and taking on roles that are, so if you're working with, let's say you're working with a group of autistic youth, and they want to tell a story about their experience, and they're going to put on a musical that tells a story about their experiences in the world. My role as the researcher may be in the role of, where I get the set design together, or I help to, I'm in the background helping get their performance going. And so maybe I need to do some statistical analysis over here for something. I have to do other things. And I play a certain creative role here that I might not be making the art, but I still have a creative role. And that creative role could be, whatever it is, as long as the researcher, I am reflexive and I am transparent about what my role is and who I am in relation to this research question. That stuff's important to the research, right?
Mikey, unfortunately, It's time for us
Closing time.
to say goodbye. It's time for us to say
Goodbye.
goodbye. Thank you, Mike, so much for
Thank you, Andre.
creativity. Thank you, Mike, so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Beat,
Sorry.
Mike, maybe you want to repeat your last remarks so we can have the translation.
Oh, sure. Thank you, everybody. It was an honor to be with you in Brazil. And one day we'll be together and we will play together and have a great time and discover new things. So one day in the future, okay, everybody? Kisses from all the way up here in New York. Be safe.